put on Netflix, and before the movie started, like there was nothing playing yet, she came out of the room. She's like, I'm actually going to bed. Like, can you lower that? And I'm like, lower what? Literally,
No.
we're not even watching the movie yet.
What up?
I'm Bianca.
And I'm Adrianne.
And we're two independent, creative women living in New York City, going through a lot of stuff.
And that's why we're here to share our experiences, and hopefully you can learn something from it.
Or you can just laugh with us.
In this episode of Women in the Wild,
What are we talking about?
we're talking about living with roommates.
Woo!
Specifically in New York City.
New York edition.
Yeah, New York edition. Who shall go first? Maybe you, since you started out here in college.
Yeah, so I'm Dominican, and I came to New York for college.
What year was that?
1974. No.
Old lady.
2013.
Okay.
August 2013.
Wow.
And first of all, I've never lived with roommates. Like, you know how siblings sometimes they are in the same room. Like, I always had my own room since I was a little girl. So to me, like, the idea of a roommate was like completely new. And I remember not even being sure if I would like that experience. But first year of college, it was not an option to have a single, which is like your own room. You had to have one roommate. And since I came to New York alone, like I didn't really know anyone, especially like to go to college with or anything. Like I knew that whoever I got paired with was gonna be someone completely new who I've never met. So it was a little bit scary, and I think it was scary to like it was scary. And it was valid that it was scary because it ended up being a pretty awful situation. You know, like it was something to be scared about, is what I'm trying to say. I didn't really like the person that I was paired with. And apparently they did this, like admissions thought about who to pair you with, like based on your personality and like I think your grades and like your interests or the classes you were taking.
Oh, okay.
So you would think they do a better job, but they really didn't. I did not like my roommate. She was like this. She was introverted, which I have nothing against. I'm also introverted, but in like a rude way. Like she doesn't want to talk to you, kind of a thing. And she would spend like 90% of her time in the room. Which is like, you know, when you have a roommate, it's nice that they are also people that go out and like hang out with friends. Like I was that roommate. I would like crash at my friends' dorm sometimes, or I don't know, I'd be out on campus doing something. So the room could be alone sometimes, and I'm sure she took advantage of that. But I didn't have that to take advantage of from her. Like she was just always in the room. Like I would... Any hour, any time of the day, I come in the room, she's there. Like, I have no alone time. And it got so bad to the point that I remember having emotional breakdowns. I remember a specific conversation I had with my friend Matt. Shout out, Matt, if you're watching. Where I was just like, I remember we were sitting on the floor, like super dramatic, and I was like, I just don't have anywhere to go. Because I wanted to be alone, and like, my room is the place to do that, and that was not me. Like that was not a space for me to be alone. Yeah. So I remember like I would like look for places that could be empty, like the library or like a random floor at a random building, you know, like maybe the roof of... I was on a hunt for like a place where I could be alone, and I just couldn't find one. And I just like dropped on the floor. I was like, I just want to be alone.
And to think you don't even really like alone time. Remember in season 1? So if you're tuning in just now to season 2, Bianca has a hard time kind of blocking off time for yourself.
Yeah. I think I like alone time, but like just for short periods of time.
Yeah.
But I do need them, even if they're short.
So for you to even say that you were desperate for alone time, she must have really been in that room all the time.
all the time. I have vivid memories of that, like me literally looking for places where I could be alone, and it's a college campus. Like, nope, there's
No.
people everywhere. It was so frustrating. Imagine that. It's like
college
a nightmare.
campus in New York City.
It's a nightmare. Imagine you trying to have alone time and there's no place to even go to have that.
Gosh.
It was frustrating.
No, that's frustrating.
And also, like, I'm more open now, but like back in 2013, I was pretty conservative. And like, my mind was still very baby-like in many ways. And so my roommate had a boyfriend, and she also smoked weed. So it was like many things that I did. It's not that I didn't approve of. They were just very new to me to like even grasp. So it was like this person who's always in the room, and also like I don't like some of the stuff she does in the room. Like I just didn't want to be there. So to like end the story, second semester, because it's a full year, right? You have to be in that room for 2 semesters. The second semester, I literally grabbed all my stuff and like put them in my luggage, and I moved with a friend.
Okay. Was it a dorm or an apartment?
No, a dorm. So a friend of mine had a single to herself. No, she had a huge room to herself. It was like this weird thing happened, and she got lucky, and she had a room with extra beds. And I moved in with her because I'm like, I won't have alone time. Like, I'm still moving with someone, but at least I like this friend. And also, she was busier and had a life. So I did have times where I could use that room to be alone.
And she would also have that time because you would go out too.
But it got that bad that I had to like break the rules, and I moved out of my dorm to like live with someone else. I was like, I can't stand this girl. Because she was also rude. That was the biggest thing for me. Like, sex and weed, like, you can do that on your own, and like it'll be fine when you're not doing that. But like the fact that she was rude, it's like you can't avoid that. Like, that's just her personality. And there's people you don't feel comfortable with just around them.
Yeah, and it's a tiny room.
It was a tiny room too. It was a tiny dorm.
I remember seeing those pictures because you would show me from your old iPhone pictures, remember? Yeah,
the dorms were really small in that college. So that was my first ever roommate. Traumatized. What's yours?
Okay. So we'll just go back and forth. So my first experience with roommates in New York City was kind of like similar to you. I had my own room the whole time growing up in the Philippines, or even when I moved here to the States. Like, if I had to share, I didn't have to share a room because I was the only girl. So my 2 brothers would share, and then I would get a room.
Yeah, same. Exactly. That's why I had my room growing up.
Yeah.
2 brothers too.
Yeah.
Hey.
So when I moved here, I was like, I got a job at a company in Union Square. And so I went on Craigslist and I looked for roommates. I was like, didn't have a lot of money, didn't know what I was doing, everything's super new. I only really came into the city to do workshops in high school and things. So that's as far as I know. Like, I didn't know anything about Brooklyn at the time. So I went apartment hunting, and then I ended up having a gay couple as roommates. And that taught me a lesson, because as nice as they were, and that I'm still in contact with one of them until now, and we're still friends.
Are they still together, the couple?
No, they're not even together anymore. And they even had a dog. That was actually why I wanted to move in, because they had a French bulldog.
I would move in for a French bulldog.
Right? Because then it's like a free dog that you don't really have to take care
of all the time. Free dog therapy.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was super fun. And luckily, what I did was, and I guess it's also like pro tip, if you're moving into the city for the first time and also with a new job and you're not so sure about everything yet, there are month-to-month options, and luckily that's what I signed on for this. I subleased. And so I only really lived with them for 3 months until I found, at that time I was already settled into my job. I knew that I liked it and that I could stay in that job for a long time. And so I found a more permanent situation. I actually got I was able to sign onto like a 1-year lease with my friends. Well, they became my friends because I also saw them on Craigslist.
That's Alex, right?
Yeah, so Alex,
Hey,
Chris, shout out to you guys, Alberto.
Shout out.
And Blake. So most of them were, so Alex, Chris, and Blake, they're actors and actress, and Alex is an actress. And then Alberto is a baker. Now he's studying journalism. So it was so nice to be in a creative household. And they ended up becoming friends because until now we're all still in contact. So like 2 different situations, like with a gay couple, I guess it didn't work out because living with a couple, you're always the one that's gonna be the one to adjust and like always feel like you're third wheeling, even though they're like normal and
just
they're like,
out.
let's just all hang out in the living room. There's always kind of this thing. And I recently discovered like making more friends with people and like meeting other people who have lived with couples. It's always met with, oh, you live with a couple. How is that? It's never like, oh, you live with a couple?
Of course
cool.
not.
Never.
No.
And I've learned that it's like, oh, okay, it's not a good idea to live with couples.
Yeah, and doesn't it feel unfair to have 2 people split rent and then you paying the third part? No,
yeah, I mean, sometimes it's divided by 3 or sometimes it's divided by rooms. So, for example, and like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So like for my first experience, the gay couple, or like any couple, I guess for that matter, it didn't work because there was just 3 of us. But when I moved in with Alex, Chris, and Alberto and Blake, let's call this the Star Street apartment. When I moved into Star Street, Alex and Chris are a married couple. They're a young married couple. But that worked because Alberto and Blake were around. And they're pretty chill. So like that didn't feel like an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah. That's more people. But if you're the only extra one, then you're always going to feel like...
It's kind of weird. Unless you're just the type of person who likes to stay indoors or like is always out, then
you're there to sleep kind of a thing?
Yeah, then I guess it's okay. And also if you get to save money if it's divided by 3.
Which is rare, I think.
Yeah, so I got lucky with the 20 Star Street one because we were all creative, so we'd do each other's headshots or they'd help each other run lines. And then we got really lucky with Alberto because he just make us fresh bread every morning.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, and that was in Bushwick. So like all my apartments have really remained in like Bushwick because I love the area. It's pretty young, lots of things to do, and accessible at the time to where I was working, which was Union Square. So along the L line.
Okay.
Yeah. And then that was cool. And then what's your next roommate situation?
Okay. So after that one roommate, my freshman year, all my other roommates in college were pretty good because I just moved in with friends after that. And I think I chose my friends to live with pretty well. So like just good experience. Another roommate that is worth mentioning though is my first roommate out of college. Which was when I moved to Sunnyside, Queens. And this place I also found through Craigslist. And at the time, I had just started working full-time. Well, that's not true. Maybe I had like 5 months in working full-time. But I was commuting from White Plains every day, and I was working in Long Island City. And I was like, I just need an easier commute than this. So I moved to Sunnyside, which is like right next to Long Island City. And I found this like very affordable room, and it was also subleased month to month, and it was in the apartment of an old lady. So like that was the con. And like she was nice and everything, but just like living with an old lady, she was old Puerto Rican lady, it almost felt like I was an independent woman. Like,
you still felt like you were living with a mom or grandma?
Yeah, I felt like I was living with or like an aunt or like something like, especially since she also spoke Spanish and she's Puerto Rican. Like she felt so much like family after a certain point. I stayed there for like a year and a half.
Wow.
And she was nice, but she was like the type of old Latina lady that is like a little bit close-minded, so like I don't know, like
old school.
Yeah, old school. So I couldn't really like, it's not a roommate you would like sit down and like talk about life with.
And boys.
Yeah. And like I never invited anyone to that apartment. I was dating though at the beginning of me living there, and like my ex-boyfriend came over, and he met her and she liked him. Everyone loved my ex-boyfriend except me.
he's an ex-boyfriend.
Dude, I really hope he never finds this podcast. I'm so mean. My mom loved him. I was like, Mom, you marry him. Seriously, everyone loves him. Like, all the old people in my life loved him. Mm-hmm. My friends were not super happy about him, but like my mom, my 65-year-old roommate, I don't freaking love him. He was like, such a good guy. Good for you. I'm like, that's where they get you, though. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's why it felt a little bit uncomfortable. Also, the fact that it was very much like her apartment that I was subleasing a room at. Like, it never felt like I was, like, that was my place, you know? I always felt like that little thing that you just tuck to the side and it's, like, in the corner over there. But, like, the kitchen and the living room, like, I like cooking for myself. Like, I felt weird, like, cooking in her kitchen. I never, ever, ever even once had, like, in her living room, like, just to chill, ever. It was very much like my room and then the bathroom, you know?
That's how I felt about my first apartment.
Yeah, so it was uncomfortable. Like, it was really cheap, and the commute from Sunnyside is beautiful. Like, it's
to
like,
Long Island City,
and like to the city because you have the 7th train. It was like in 10 minutes I'd be in Grand Central. So it's good in many ways, and I think like that was perfect for me, like to move into the city. Mm-hmm. But after a year, I remember saying like I have to get out of here just to like feel like a person again. I feel
your own person.
Yeah, like I for my own like respect to myself, I gotta get out of here. I can't spend 2 years in these conditions. So that's when I then moved to Bed-Stuy with my other roommate that I'll talk about later. But in general, Margie, which is her name, mm-hmm. she was nice and she was very welcoming and she provided what I needed at the time. Mm-hmm. We just were never gonna become besties or anything like that.
Imagine your best friend is a 65-year-old woman.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, you know, but she was not necessarily like my kind of people in like friends wise. Mm-hmm. But it was cool. It was cool. She was very cheap though. She was the kind that wouldn't let you like borrow anything. So that's also why I mean like it felt very much like that. All of that is her stuff.
Gotcha.
And like
you're the little thing tucked into the corner.
Yeah. And none of my friends ever wanted to see that place. Like not even my bestest friends, I think, ever. I just didn't feel, because it was her place, I didn't feel like I could even invite people like that, you know? Where would we hang out? My tiny room, you know? Mm-hmm. But anyway,
yeah.
That's my second roommate story.
Okay, so then I'll go next, which is actually perfect that you mentioned that you kind of felt like that wasn't really your home, because after I stayed in 20 Star Street, and that was like a really good apartment, we all got along. Eventually I moved in. Eventually I got into like a more serious relationship, and to a point where I was able to move in with my boyfriend at the time. And you know, when I moved in with him, I wasn't just moving in with him, I was moving in with him and his grandpa. Mm-hmm. So you know that, like I actually never invited anybody to that place. The only two people the only two friends that I've ever invited to that place is you and Alex. That's it. In the like year and a half that I lived there.
VIP friend group.
Exactly. So, and also like I just felt uncomfortable because it's like it's not my place, even though I tried to make it into my home and like really make it feel more lively and, you know, put my own little touch to it. But eventually it kind of just took a toll where like I stopped doing things. And also it was in Manhattan, so I felt like, oh, everything's so near. And so it's just right there. I don't really care for it anymore because it's so convenient that it's so convenient that you end up doing nothing about it. So yeah, I mean, that was, I guess what I learned from that is like when you're in a relationship and then you end up living with somebody is to initially like set boundaries and really know the habits of another person, because in the beginning it was like a rough start and then we got into a really good groove. But because he did have his grandpa. That was really the biggest factor. And so I was like, there are areas in which I don't really need to be involved in, but then I end up being involved because I live there. And, of course, it's like you want it to feel fair and want to be able to contribute to your household. But at the same time, it was also kind of like holding me back from a lot of things. So after that, I went on my world tour.
Yeah.
And then coming back from my world tour, everything worked out that in January I moved back to 20 Star Street with almost the same set of people except one horrible roommate.
But I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about just the experience of living with a significant other.
Yeah.
Pros and cons?
Okay, so pros. If your relationship is going well, then you get to wake up next to that same person. It's nice to be able to have breakfast together. I like routine, so it's also just nice to have that person accessible right there. In New York, people move in with one another to save money, not necessarily because you want to move in with each other. And so I think that was also like one of my mistakes or our mistakes, and that sometimes people fall into this trap of, especially now during a pandemic, right? Because it's so much easier to be like, oh, well, I lost my job, but then my partner has this place, we could save money, so then let's move in. And really, you're not ready for it. So I guess ask those questions of like, are you actually ready? Do you agree on finances? Discuss how much you're actually going to contribute to the household. It doesn't necessarily mean like half. The way that we would split it was a percentage of like his salary and like mine. That way it would be proportionate. Setting up budgets like that and being responsible for like who's doing groceries and this and that, and just I think money was like the biggest factor that nobody really prepares for in the beginning. And that situation was just unique in and of itself because the grandpa was involved. But in general, living with a significant other, it's a lot of like just being flexible and like communicating, like because you're also constantly together. Sometimes things tend to be over communicated that you overthink it, when actually all you need is alone time. You're just desperate for alone time.
Yeah, how do you divide alone time? I guess you just have to tell them straight in the face, like, look, I need alone time. Stay out of the room for like the next 3 hours.
Sometimes there wouldn't even be another room to go into, because aside from the grandpa, there would be a health aide that would be there to assist the grandpa. So there would be no privacy.
If he wants to be in the room, like, you can't really kick him out.
No, I really can't. So what we did was he bought me headphones, like noise canceling headphones. And every time I had that on, you're not allowed to talk to me. You're not even allowed to bother me for anything. Like if the headphones are on, you're leaving me alone. But even that feels limiting. No, because
you need the space.
You just need the space.
Alone time to me is more about the space than like people talking to me.
Exactly. And at the time, at the time, we were also both working from home. So there were moments where we both worked from home, and then it was like, oh my gosh, just either I would go into my office just to get away, even though I didn't have any work to do.
Now I understand why you made it a priority to have an office. Sometimes I'm like, why does Adrianne pay for an office? Like, that's kind of too much. But in that situation,
it was crazy, because then he'd work from home and he would have to stay at home because then he's waiting for like a doctor to call him about his grandpa. It would be a lot of things where like I would adjust, and I didn't have any say in that. And that's not like his fault. It's just that that's the environment that we were put in. So, if you're going to do that, just consider all factors, mostly budget and then alone time.
I remember when you moved to Star Street, even though you had like a tiny room, you were so happy. You were like, I have my own room. And
it was a closet, basically, guys. Like a little 8x10 closet.
New York really makes you appreciate the little things. It's crazy.
It was humbling, but at least it was my space. I was lucky that the building had our own rooftop and a gym. Especially because I did have that one horrible roommate when I moved back to 20 Star Street, since it was like 2 years later that there was a lease renewal and somebody new came in, since Alberto left for college and stuff like that. So it's crazy that that experience was like that. In the beginning, it was very good, of course, and
I think
and
it was
there
a
were
good
moments of like
experience in general.
awesome moments,
Yeah.
like when we would just travel together or be able to do like last minute spontaneous things because we live together.
Right.
And just like growth and intimacy, like a lot of that was actually really good. I learned a lot about what I needed, like for myself, and that what's important to me. So like now it's alone time and a kitchen where I can cook. Just like you're like basically the same place you're coming from. It's just I need a place that feels like it's mine.
Mm-hmm. So that's when I switched to like just segueing.
Yeah, your turn.
Switched to Bed-Stuy, and that was the first time, which I'm always saying the same thing in this season, I feel, but I talk about this in the mini doc that I did. That apartment was the first time that I had a place that felt mine. Because even in college, of course, that doesn't feel like your place. First of all, it's a dorm, not an apartment. And you're sharing it with other people. I mean, I was sharing my previous apartment too, but we had different rooms at least, you know? So it's a different experience anyway.
And finding your own roommate means that you get to interview them with the questions that are relevant to you and not something that the school put together.
Yeah, exactly. So in this new apartment, you know, it was brand new, no furniture, just empty. So it was cool to have that experience of like, I'm going to buy my furniture that I like. I'm going to make this the style that I want, and it's going to feel mine. And that's exactly what it was. We kept it really simple in terms of decoration, but like the pieces that we added to the apartment were all very much like our style and like just who we were. Like that bookshelf was so Bianca. Like even the freaking plants and the books that were there. I don't know. I know it sounds
housewarming
silly.
Party. Remember?
Yeah.
That's also nice. A group photo from that night was in your mini doc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a small section just saying how this apartment was my first home in New York, really.
Was that also the time that you got your mattress, or was that from a previous apartment?
I got my mattress right after college, but it's funny. I got my mattress that I still have to this day. I got it right after college, like the day after graduation, but then I couldn't use it until I moved here because
to Bed-Stuy.
So I bought the apartment. I lived in White Plains for like 4 months, and I used the mattress. I'm sorry, I said apartment, right?
Yes.
I got the mattress. Then I moved to White Plains for like 4 months. I used the mattress in that place. But then when I moved to Sunnyside with Margie, the 65-year-old lady, I couldn't use that mattress because she provided a twin bed for me.
A twin bed.
A twin bed.
You had a queen size bed, right?
Yeah. And so I gave my mattress that I had bought like really expensive one, by the way. I really indulged in that because I wanted like a good mattress after sleeping in a dorm twin bed for 4 years, you know? And then I couldn't use it when I moved until I moved here. So I spent like a year and a half that I didn't use the mattress that I had bought for myself.
I didn't even know that. I just know the story of like you were so excited to buy it, you saved up for it and everything. That was like your first big grown-up purchase.
Yeah. And I basically gave it to my mom. I'm like, here, you use it while I get a place where I can fit a queen size bed.
And now that you have a fully furnished apartment again, it's still in custody. It's still alive.
We sent it to DR.
Yeah.
So it's still mine. It's now in my bed in the Dominican Republic.
Exactly.
This mattress has gone places.
Yeah. Sisterhood of the traveling mattress.
But anyway, I got this place, made it my own home. It was amazing. I love that kitchen. First time I had like a nice kitchen to use. And so roommate was a friend of a friend that got connected with me through Instagram because I was just telling everyone like, I need a roommate. Everyone, like, if you know anyone, let me know. And so she used to live in San Francisco, so we met through FaceTime actually, and we spent I think like a month or two just talking through FaceTime, talking about logistics, obviously getting to know each other. Like you said, asking the right questions. We're basically like the same level of type of roommate, which worked perfectly. Like clean, respectful. We don't have to be like best friends ever, but like we established a very good roommate relationship. That was all I needed. She's even cleaner than me, honestly. Like, she was just impeccable.
And she's just sweet, I guess. Like,
yeah, she took really care of me when I got sick.
And you don't have to ask her. She just does it.
Yeah. Also, very responsible with payments and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything just worked perfectly. Honestly, it was one of those things that is like, I can't imagine a better situation. Like, if I had moved with a friend, it definitely wouldn't have been like that. Because when you're with friends, it's like so comfortable that you are more laid back about things. We were both like on point, like very respectful to each other. Yeah. So that was cool. That was like the first proper roommate I had too.
Well, an apartment in general.
An apartment. Yeah. And I think that allowed a lot of growth too, like personal growth. You feel like a completely different person after you have your place that is yours. You just feel like more established. Definitely let me also build new relationships because I can bring people in. I can throw a party if I want. Or
you even did some product shoots at your apartment.
I did
because it was a beautiful apartment.
Also, because it's my place, I feel more free in it, right? And that's why we did the podcast. We started at that apartment. Like if I had another roommate situation, I probably wouldn't have felt comfortable to like start recording in the kitchen.
Yeah. And sometimes she would actually just straight up go to her boyfriend's place and we'd have the whole place to ourselves. So sometimes it would even just work out like that. Like she was just that amazing.
Yeah. That's a whole nother topic. Like she's been dating since we met. She had a boyfriend the whole time. And she would go to the boyfriend's house all the time. So it's like a lot, like half the time in that place, I was living by myself, which is amazing. Especially the last 2 or 3 months, like after the pandemic. Yeah. She basically moved with the boyfriend, and I was like, okay, I have my place for a few months. So that was cool, too.
Yeah, and you had a productive 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, great experience. Best roommate experience of my life so far.
Nice.
Now you go with your worst roommate experience of your life so far.
Okay. So, oh gosh, what a story. So after moving in with, so recap, because there's so many things, right? So I've already moved with I've had an experience with moving in with living with a gay couple, or a couple in general. I've experienced living with a married couple plus multiple people. Right. My goodness, this is so New York. And then I experienced living with a partner plus a grandparent.
Right.
Like your 65-year-old. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
We have that in common, living with old people.
And then, so after I lived with Joey and his grandpa, I left for my world tour and then I came back to 20 Star Street. At that point, Alex and Chris were also doing some kind of their own version of a world tour in LA. Yeah. So the people that were left, and then Blake had moved back to LA too. So the person who replaced Blake was this other girl. Let's not even mention her name. And then also Manny, which is another friend of Alex and Chris's, also an actor. So it was me, Manny, that girl, and then Blake for a bit during pilot season came to New York so that he can like film a couple things and audition for that season. So it was fun because I was living at the time with 2 dudes and then this one random girl that we didn't really care for.
And the 2 dudes were really cool.
Yeah, I loved living with dudes. I mean, that's like the best thing. And I got an experience for both because it's like, this is what it is living with a girl who isn't my friend and isn't respectful or, you know, just doesn't give a crap about anything or like caring about the home. Like for her, it was just a place to dump her things, eat, and leave because she had a corporate job and we were all creatives. And for the longest time, she held it against us that we were all creatives and she had a full-time job.
In like a snobby way,
In the most snobby way. So she'd be like, I have to get up at 6 a.m. because I have this, this, and this. And it's like, well, I also get up at 6 a.m. and I actually do. You're still in bed at 7 a.m. I'm already up. Like, what are you talking about 6 a.m.?
And even if you didn't wake up at 6 a.m., why is she belittling your job? Yeah. It's like one of those people that think because you're a creative and you're a freelancer, you're lazy or something, when in reality, you're probably working more than her. Like me knowing you, you were probably working more than her.
And
So,
that's
like,
what that
hate
was. And it's the same thing for like my other roommates. It was unanimous. And even before I arrived, I had already gotten warnings about her, like disclaimers about her, just because when Alberto moved out, they were really looking to fill the room. So she was really like the biggest factor in all of this. And that's why they were like, oh, good, it's going to work out because at least we know you already. And if it was another person, they might have a more difficult time with her kind of thing. So it was just easier for everybody. But we had a lot of like back and forths that went actually pretty intense, which really was so unnecessary. Like just thinking back to it.
She always felt out of place, but it's also because she made herself out of place. Like she didn't really bond with you guys well, or like try to properly.
And I think the way that she would try would just come off as weird or like awkward or just inorganic. You know, it felt forced. And also because she's already insulted us many times. Like one of the back and forths was like, when I told her like, obviously it's not a good fit that you live here. And she's like, yeah, because I went to an Ivy League school. And because all of my friends went to an Ivy League school. And so I actually retorted back, like, so what the fuck does that make us? Idiots?
Yeah.
We all live in the same house. You can't say that you're better than us by saying, like, hello, we know how much you pay in rent. Like, you're crazy.
Also, she's literally kind of insulting herself because it's like, I went to an Ivy League school and I'm living like someone who didn't. So Ivy League school didn't do much for you, baby. Apparently. If you're so great, why are you fucking living here? Go live in a mansion then.
And people who like put people down just to lift themselves up, like I feel bad for them.
Yeah, you're
because
right.
it's like, okay, you just have an unhealthy perspective of how to look at yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why it became so toxic. Like it came to a point where at like 11 o'clock we just have to whisper, and that she would still come out of her room and be like, I can hear you.
I didn't live there, but I think that would be the most annoying thing out of all the things. Because you can insult me, then we're over it in like a minute, you know? But the fact that she was making you guys not feel comfortable in your own home to like use it openly whenever you want to, that's like an everyday thing until she left. Like you always felt that. Like that's the biggest issue, I think.
We would have to plan around her. That kind of thing.
Like, who is she?
when back then, when it was all like the original like creative people with Alberto and Blake and stuff, it was so chill. We can just do whatever. But ever since she happened, it was like, oof, we actually have to like be careful.
Yeah. I remember the first day I went to visit you, she was there, and we didn't we like put on Netflix, and before the movie started, like there was nothing playing yet, she came out of the room. She's like, I'm actually going to bed. Like, can you lower that? And I'm like, lower what? Literally, we're not even watching the movie yet.
Before that, so we entered and she was in the living room. Remember that? And then before even saying hello, she didn't even say hello. I was like, I told her, I was like, oh, this is my friend Bianca. You know, I'm just getting settled in, blah, blah, blah. And then she was like, I actually have to be at work. And then later on, instead of even saying hi, she was like, barely even acknowledged us. And then later on, she came out, she's like, I actually have to be asleep early. Yeah, that was it. And then we ended up hanging out in my room. My little tiny ass room.
Yeah. We ended up watching the movie in your laptop.
Yeah, and Manny hung out with us for a bit. And it was like such a small room. My goodness. Yeah. But that was just that. Like.
But it was so... You know, like, it all felt like it wasn't really that she was gonna hear the movie. Every time that she came out to say something, it was like she was trying to prove something, or like she wanted you to know that she has important stuff to do. Like,
that's the mood. That's her mood. That's also the same comments as like the other people that we lived with in that apartment.
Because I'm telling you, we didn't even start the movie. How are you gonna come out and say, oh, I actually have something like really important to do at 5 a.m. So can you please like go to the room? It's like, this isn't about the movie because it literally hasn't even started. This is about you telling us that you have this important thing at 5 a.m. and like bragging about it. Who brags about that?
I'm so busy.
Who brags?
I love it. Like, who brags about being busy? I hate being busy.
Oh my god. And like, what's the point? Like, you just met me. You don't know, like...
I just moved in. Like, let me enjoy my place, you know? Let me settle in. Jeez.
It was weird.
It
and
was
like,
so
she literally
weird.
just met me that night. Like, how does she know that's something that would impress me? Because at the end of the day, people like that, like, want you to feel impressed. Or like, when you brag about something, it's because you're trying to impress other people.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't impress me. You just met me.
And did you know that the very next day she texted me? She was like, hey, like oh no, she asked me for my phone number because she's like, I just want a group chat so that whenever we have guests, we can like tell the apartment. And I'm like, why? We're
So
adults.
passive-aggressive.
Like, why do we need permission from each other? Like, I appreciate ample warning. That's being considerate. That's different. But kind of making it into a rule where adults live is just stupid. And sometimes, like, she just wouldn't even take care of the things in the apartment.
Oh, never. Like, the bathroom was trash.
The bathroom was trash. Like, we stopped using that entirely because we started using Alex and Chris's because we were like, we're always the ones cleaning it. So there's really no point.
That's crazy. The main bathroom of this apartment was hers, basically, because it was so gross that Adrian and the other guys decided to use, like, a bathroom that was inside another bedroom.
Yeah.
Just because it was better to use that than the one she was using.
And you would think that because we gave, like, imagine, like, oh, thanks for giving me the bathroom, guys. Like, I would clean it up. So it's like, oh, cool, because then it's all mine. I can maintain it. Nope. No, the bathroom was even worse.
She's just a dirty person. She's a dirty person. She doesn't clean.
Oh, gosh. And then she would, like, leave the printer. Like, she just did not care in general. We can rant about her all day. But anyway, what's your next? That's your next. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah.
I have a next one.
You have a next one? Yeah, go for it.
It's super short because I don't have much to say yet. But it's, like, my current roommate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different in the way... It's different because it's a guy for the first time. I've never lived with a guy before. And I was a little bit nervous at first, but at the same time, I was like, it's kind of cool to live with a guy because guys are so chill for the most part. And also, I thought it would be, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I almost felt like if I'm the only woman in the house, that kind of empowers me.
I really agree. And I told you this. So it's like, I love living with guys, especially coming home from like a date and then being able to tell them about it, or like they'll hype you up, or let's say you come out in like a little cute outfit and then they react a little bit. It's just nice, you know? It's nothing like gross or like sexual or anything like that. It's just like cool. Like, I appreciate your feedback. Yeah. Or powerful. Like your reaction.
Yeah. Because I feel like sometimes with women, there's like a sense of competitiveness, even if you're two nice girls that don't really care about that stuff. Like, it's just natural, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I feel like with guys, you kind of don't think about any of those things. And that's how it's been. Like, my current roommate now, I got lucky that he's really nice. He's not, like, guys can be jerks. Mm-hmm. Like, you can go...
Or slobs.
You can go really wrong with guys, too. But he's, like, super clean, very respectful. And... you know, like the right amount of friendly, you know, It's been good. It's been a good first experience for me living with a guy.
Yeah.
And I think I could do it again. Like, as long as they're nice people, I almost feel more comfortable around guys than girls. That's the thing, comfortable. Like, even if you're a nice girl and like we get along, I'm never like as comfortable with women to like be like silly. Like, my first friends are always guys. Like, when I went to college...
shout out to Matt.
My first friends were always guys. In, like, school, back in school, my first friend... Like, if there's a group of people, I'm going to be friends with the guys first.
Yeah.
Just because you feel more free in a way.
Yeah, one of my best friends in the Philippines is Io. We always get along. Yeah, and he's been my friend for, like, since ever.
Unless there's, like, the sexual attraction or whatever.
I mean, it could totally turn into it. But I think, my opinion... is that girls and guys could totally be platonic friends.
Exactly. Like,
it's super possible.
If you can establish that it's going to be a friendship from the very beginning, it is so freeing.
Yeah.
Because you can really be a dork with guys.
Exactly.
Without feeling judged.
Yeah. And you already went out for a walk with your roommate. You went to the park together.
Yeah, like the first weekend together. We went running in the park. That was nice. That was a nice bonding experience. And like I had just met him, and I was like, he's cool. Like he was down to join me on my run, and then we got coffee. And yeah, sometimes we watch movies. It's pretty chill. We protested together too.
That's right. Yeah.
The
And
Black
that's good
Lives
because at
Matter.
least you're not alone, and you can invite him to things like that. So
and he's been really chill about Adrian. Like, you stay here as long as you want, and it's cool.
Yeah, while we film. Yeah, it was so nice to chill with the guys actually, because like I remember I was actually super sporty and active when I was living with guys, because then we'd sometimes if I wouldn't go to the gym with you, Manny would go to the gym and was like, dang, you worked out? Okay, I have to work out then. So we'd keep each other in check. And then Blake would play basketball at the court. So I'd always have somebody to shoot hoops with. And we lived across a school that had basketball hoops. So yeah, it was kind of nice to always have like people not to just even watch movies with, but to actually have an active lifestyle with. So that was fun because like I used to play varsity basketball in middle school and high school, so it was nice to kind of have people to play with. Because I cannot do a pickup game in the Brooklyn courts. Like people are so good, I am just not fit like that. So playing with the guys, they more or less like go on my level or like really push me. So that was super cool.
One last thing about living with guys that I think is a huge perk is that, and we talked about this, like there's a male energy in the house. And sometimes like as women or like heterosexual women, you and I, we agree that we both need like a male energy from time to time, like especially if you're single. And I just feel less of a need to go out there and like meet up with a guy when there's a guy at home who I'm very chill with. So that's been cool. Like I feel less need to like go on dates actually. Maybe that's why I'm canceling everyone. It's like I just need some male energy and I have that at home. And it's super comfortable because I'm not necessarily looking like for a sexual experience or anything like that. Sometimes you just need to be around the guy. And I just have that at home. So that's cool. That's cool. Whereas if you're only with girls all the time, you're definitely going to crave like just hanging out with a guy for the sake of hanging out with a guy.
Hanging out with girls is emotionally exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And that's why now
I'm done.
And that's why now I have now the new apartment that I moved into on Siegel Street, I live with, I don't even know how to count.
Okay. 2 girls and 1 guy.
Yeah, I live with 2 girls and 1 guy. See, there's always still that one dude in the picture, and I love all of them.
Keep the energy in check.
And like things have worked out. Like they are so helpful. Like we share food, we do movie nights, we help each other like sell furniture, or like it's just a good dynamic actually all across the board. We've even gone to like the farmer's market, and when Jenny couldn't go with us because she's injured, we even brought back like a plant for her just so that she could feel like a part of like our little trip, because she was supposed to go with us. You know, little things like that. Or like one time she found a little fern plant to rehabilitate. It's like, we could totally make this plant alive. So we walked all the way from our place to Grand Street to go pick up 2 plants on like our little carts. So it was like so all cute. 3 of us, even though 2 of us could have probably went, but like, yeah, let's all go.
That's nice, just for the experience of it.
Yeah, or like even if like right now too, like I live near a hardware store, like just 2 minutes away from my apartment. So going even back to making it my own space, it's been so nice that like there's a convenient place. Like in New York, you don't really think of painting walls because you always worry about the security deposit that you might never get back. But now that I've kind of found a good roommate situation, good location, I'm like able to paint my walls like a color that I really love and like make it into my own space. And
I can't wait to go when you're done.
And that my roommates are like, yes, like bring out your furniture that you want to put in the living room here, make it your space. Like I've just felt so welcomed that I have never transitioned and felt immediately comfortable in a new environment so fast until just this apartment. This is like the easiest move, the easiest adjustment period. Like within the first week, I like cooked a meal, like a really complicated meal, like because I have these little checklists. Like I want to be able to like have a good night's sleep, do laundry, cook a meal, and like just hang out in the living room. If all of those, like the cooking a meal is like the most important thing, and if I can cook a full meal in that kitchen, I know I'm home.
Yeah.
You know?
That's
so
nice.
that's like my basis. And if I can like sleep without any disruption, it's like, okay, I'm home. And they made me feel that way immediately. And it's still like that. And I've lived there since April.
And we may or may not be doing a few episodes in your room.
Right? Exactly. So
you
guys
might get
actually
to get
see
it. Might get to see it.
Yeah.
So that's it for today's episode. I think a good conclusion to everything that we've talked about is that New York really makes you struggle. Like all of this is like, meet any New Yorker and they're gonna have crazy roommate stories. That's just like part of getting in the city. Like if you have family members or if you found any other way that's simpler than like just Craigslisting and like living with people you don't know, then you're privileged and you're lucky. Like 90% of New Yorkers start just like apartment hopping and meeting people along the way and like moving in with strangers. Like people who want to become a New Yorker, you have to go through that.
Yeah. And I think it also comes with just a lot of options. Like if you wanted to come to New York, if you really wanted to, you have a lot of options. Because like I felt like at the moment when I was straight out of college and I moved here with a couple, I didn't have good credit. I didn't have a job, like a stable job that I've had for over a couple years already to prove that I can make payments and things like that. But there are things like month-to-month subleasing and just so many kinds of people. Or like if you really have the budget, you can live by yourself. But for me,
to start out, that's almost unrealistic.
Exactly. And I love having roommates during a pandemic because I never felt alone. And I would go through my like bouts of depression or just anxiety or sadness. But at the end of the day, it's like, oh, it's nice to hear that the house is lived in and that there's activity going on and it's not just me. Yeah. Totally. So that's like super the big advantage if you have good roommates.
Yeah. That's New York for you. Also, you gotta have tough skin. Yeah. Not everyone's down to like live in a room with an old lady.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, sometimes you have to sacrifice in order to get to where you want to be.
You don't come here to be comfortable. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah, because eventually you did get comfortable in your new apartment, but you gotta pay your dues up front.
It's a rocky start for most people. Anyway, cheers.
Cheers to our new places.
Yes.
And our new roommates.
Thank you for watching / listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.